This really is all about learning, about sharing information, and about connecting. So if during one of the presentations you have questions, you want to know more information about a particular topic, please grab one of us with a blue RightScale t-shirts or shirts. You see logos everywhere. We want to make sure we can answer questions, give you more information, take you to the right person. It's really a day that's supposed to be productive for you. So let's make it that. Before I begin though, if I can ask the people maybe in this part of the room, can I get a random word from somebody that I want to use later? I'm not going to do a magic trick. Maybe one of you guys just give me any word that you think we can use. I'm looking at you guys since which one? Bump. Bump. So the word is bump. All right, so you'll see what that's used for in a moment. I would like to say a couple of things to our partners that are here, and they have tables next door where you can talk to them directly. To our customer speakers, some of them flew from very far away to share their experiences, and also to Forrester Research, who's going to be giving a presentation. So with that, I would like to now pass the floor to Michael Crandell, our CEO, who's going to speak to you for a few minutes. Michael?
Thank you. Good morning. It's a beautiful day and morning in New York, and we're delighted to have everybody here. What we're going to talk about today, first of all, a little bit about who's here. There's a very broad range of folks here visiting us today that have signed up, ranging from CEOs of smaller companies, VP technology, on through sysadmin folks, IT directors, director of security. So your titles represent a huge range. We also did a little survey on the sign up, and I think about half of you may be new to cloud computing. There are others who've been using RightScale for years who are very, very familiar. So today is designed to kind of go across that entire range of experience. And we have some sessions that are kind of getting started and others that are much more in depth. But the idea is we'd like you to be able to leave today with a good sense of where the cloud market stands, at least from our point of view, and what's being done, what's being accomplished in the cloud today. We hope that you can learn and share, as Yuri said, about what are the best practices, what are the techniques that are yielding results. So you're going to hear a little bit from me and from Daryl this morning about RightScale, and then a lot from Frank Gillette from Forrester from an analyst perspective, and then our distinguished customer speakers who will share what their actual experience is. So it's not just a cheerleader session on RightScale, it's really sharing actionable information. We'd love for you to go home this evening with actionable information you can use in your cloud projects. So a little level setting here about where we are in cloud today. So we all know, we've seen this graph. This is, I think, one of the most telling graphs. It's the number of S3 objects that have been stored on Amazon S3 over the years. You see, started in late 2006, and then growing up through end of Q1 2011. You see an increase of about 2.5 times each year, so massive growth. Another way to look at it is that every day Amazon adds enough capacity to Amazon Web Services to power what would have been Amazon.com when it was 5 years old and a $2.7 billion a year company. Every day they're adding that much capacity. So that's the kind of growth we're seeing. But then you ask, how big is an object? What does that really mean in terms of storage? And of course, we don't know, but here are some projections from UBS in terms of revenues, right? And these are figures that Amazon itself does not disclose, but it's a reputable firm that's talking about what's the growth in revenues. And what we see here is a projection of last year in 2010, what they estimate is a $500 million a year business, which is probably at a run rate of $1 billion a year midway through 2011. So you've got $1 billion a year business as part of Amazon's larger business. And the projections are that that would grow to be 15 or 20 billion in terms of the entire market for web services, cloud web services, similar to Amazon Web Services in 2015. That's the estimate. So it's a huge market. Now the interesting thing is, as big as this is starting to get, we see that pickup of other elements around Amazon Web Services, what they pioneered, has been a little bit later. So they launched some of this in late 2006, but the term cloud computing began to catch on even later. You can see just at the end of 2007. I know when RightScale started, we were searching around for a name for what we did. It was called utility computing and other things. So that began to catch on later. And infrastructure as a service, as a term, even later. You see picking up in early 2009. So we're really at the beginning, I would say, of a tidal shift in the way IT infrastructure is delivered and consumed. It's been likened to other things, the electricity grid in Nicholas Carr's book called The Big Switch. It's been called the new IT stack, comparing it in an analogy to the lamp stack and what that did for computing from the late 90s through the early part of 2000. It's been called the third revolution, the first one being PCs, the second being the internet. So we're talking about a huge, huge shift in computing. My own favorite phrase comes from our CTO, Torsten, that is, cloud is unstoppable. It's clearly a movement that's sweeping IT, right? But it's still in its early years. We're going to see massive growth in this business for the next 10 years. We'll just see it growing and growing. Those of you in this room are the pioneers. You're the pace setters. You're the visionaries of this business. Even those of you who are just looking at cloud and getting started, because there's a huge amount of greenfield. There are a lot of people out there who aren't even looking at it yet. So most of the advances lay in front of us at this point, and we're still at the very early days. A perspective from RightScale. What kind of growth have we seen? Well, we talk in our own kind of language of where we see growth. We've talked over the years of seeing growth in the number of, say, CPU cycles that are managed under RightScale. You see on our website number of servers launched. I think it's over 2.5 million right now. There's also growth in the number of servers running steady state at any given time, because as you remember in the cloud, easy to launch servers, and then it's also easy to terminate them, etc. That's the elasticity. We gave a statistic about the number of server templates created by customers. That's over 42,000 as of Q1, which was a doubling from the previous year. And then the scale that individual customers are operating at has also increased massively. So we've been seeing roughly a doubling across these kinds of stats every year. And I wanted to show you kind of a progression graph going from the first time that we began to measure in 2007 around the spend that occurs on average based on what size of servers are being run. So we've looked at this before, but it's kind of a progression graph across from small instances up. And what you'll see by the color coding as I flip through these is as new sizes of instances were added to the cloud that we manage, the percentages of people using them. So let's just flip through, and by the way, the micro you'll see entered just last fall when that was introduced by Amazon. So going through quarter by quarter, you see as large and extra large were added, more and more people began to use those, and you also see the average cost increasing, right? So by October 2009, about half of the instances were not smalls anymore. And then the trend continues, right? And so you start to get large and extra larges mixing in, a lot of usage of extra large. Micros came in there to go back, a lot of experimentation with those as a percentage, then that dropped back down. Until today, you see this kind of split. Huge usage of the extra large size and pretty good spread otherwise of the others, and people having gone from 10 cents an hour to an average spend of 67 cents an hour over that time period. So that's what we're seeing in terms of growth from the RightScale perspective alongside those other figures that you see. It's early days, but the curves are very steep and the adoption is just very impressive. Now we'll hear later this morning about different points of view of who's adopting cloud, who's using infrastructure as a service, what the challenges are, et cetera. But we're clearly on to something that's, we've got a tiger by the tail here. So what's driving all of this, right? Well, these are what I call the 4 horsemen of the benefits or forces that are driving adoption of infrastructure as a service cloud. The first is, of course, reduction in cost. It's just cheaper. The second is agility. So this is, you hear these all the time. Agility is the ability to get resources online very quickly, sometimes enabling entire businesses that weren't possible before the agility. Increase in scale and reliability through cloud resources, another major factor, major benefit. And then also I list in there leveraging best practices. The way that you can utilize cloud is changing the way that you can deploy your best practices. You can codify what's happening in new and more powerful ways. So these forces are very powerful. They're what's driving all of this growth. And it's based on highly effective layers of abstraction. So as you know, cloud is used for everything from software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. And I've listed there how I look at the kind of layer of abstraction. When you're using a software as a service, everything beyond the browser is abstracted for you. So you don't care what data center it's running on, what type of server, what OS, what application stack, doesn't matter. With platform as a service, everything below the code is abstracted. So you pick a language, you've got your code, you upload it somewhere, and then the management of all the infrastructure below that should be automated for you. And at infrastructure as a service level, it's everything below the OS, abstracted out, and therefore you don't have to deal with that, right? Each layer achieves scalability and reliability through the uniformity of what's being offered, and that's why it's usually presented through an API. And true clouds are API driven in the sense of, you've all heard the phrase, virtualization does not a cloud make. It's very true. When we talk about cloud, if you really want to get the benefits, you need to be dealing with a cloud that is API driven. So all of this growth is fueling a lot of interest from many players who are getting into the public infrastructure as a service space. This is just actually a small subset. We put some logos up there to give you a sense. It's worldwide, it's across telcos, all kinds of companies getting into the game. So a lot of heat around public infrastructure as a service. And part of what's driving that, this is an analysis from a fellow at Microsoft Research in Europe. And what he contends is both of these graphs, it's a little hard to read all of the small print, but the box on the left is the cost, as he estimated, of running a 1,000 server data center when the data center comprises just those 1,000 servers. So you're running 1,000 servers as part of a 1,000 server data center. The box on the right is the cost of running those same 1,000 servers when they're part of a 100,000 server data center, right? And this is the basic point of economies of scale. So he's saying it's about 1/4 the cost, all in, to run those servers as part of a much bigger data center. Huge economy of scale, right? On the other side of the coin, if you poll people, and this is a Yankee Group survey from 2010, if you poll, and these are large and SMB customers, dark blue is enterprise customers, plans are for private and internal cloud, most people are planning that. So if it's so much cheaper to run in the public cloud, why are most people also planning private clouds, right? And I talked to the gentleman who ran this. They have some updated statistics that aren't public yet. He said there's been growth in the lower two graphs around public cloud also. But what we're seeing here is you got all of this public cloud interest, you got all this private cloud interest, right? So what's going on? You also have claims that you read out there of people saying the private cloud is a false cloud, right? So the question is it a false cloud or is it a false debate? And there's a gentleman named James Urquhart from Cisco who basically offered up the theory that really it's just different focus, right? The benefit of the public cloud those who are extolling that are talking about a business model. The notion of pay as you go and then relinquishing resources and stopping to paying for them doesn't work in a private cloud scenario. You've built out the data center, you own the hardware and the kit, so you're in for that no matter what. Whereas in the public cloud, you can come and go, right? But that the type of technology, the flexibility, the elasticity that you get from cloud architectures can apply in a private cloud scenario, and that's the operational model. So he's really saying it's maybe a false debate that there are benefits of these two different types that you can get in each realm, and therefore the ideal is really a hybrid cloud. So I like this quote that was published in GigaOM last week. Clouds are like buses, public isn't always better. I think the point of that is it depends on the scenario, right? One is not inherently better than the other. It depends on what your needs are. So let's talk for a second about challenges and blockers to cloud. And we see them falling into three major categories. The first one is security. It's probably the most mentioned in terms of challenges that people have getting into cloud. Second one is reliability. You hear people saying, I don't know if we want to use cloud, particularly public cloud, because of reliability. And the third is lock-in. So I want to just say a word as kind of a word about each as kind of a theme or discussion spark for today as you all have your discussions and the rest of the presentations go on. On security, you know, we believe it's a myth to say the cloud is not secure, including the public cloud. A multi-tiered approach is really what's required because security is a shared responsibility that spans all the way from what you do inside your company and your people through to technology, technical endeavors like encrypting data in transit, data at rest, etc. And it's important to distinguish between three things in that discussion. One is the technical security. The second is regulatory compliance, which is something different. So no matter how secure your data may be in a public cloud, if the law says that your company can't store it there, it's really a moot point. So regulatory compliance, separate issue. And then trust. Do you really have a relationship with whoever your partner or vendor is that leads you to a point where you trust that they're going to keep your system and data safe? Certifications are increasing all the time. In the span of that pie chart that you saw since we got started, all of those certifications have been added just in Amazon Web Services. Other cloud providers also offer different kinds of SLAs and security also. So there's been huge advance on the certification side. And now that private clouds are available also, that's often an answer. Many companies are headed there because of security. We've added a security team at RightScale, and I don't know if any of them are in the room. Raise your hand. Is Phil Cox in here? Anyway, we have a team, happy to introduce you to them because we know how important that is and happy to consult with you about that subject. On the reliability side, there are outages, and public outages of any service, whether it's software as a service, infrastructure as a service, gets a lot of attention. So if you own a data center inside your enterprise and something goes wrong, it probably doesn't get into the headlines. But if Gmail is down for an hour, it's on every headline everywhere, right? So the point is, though, that everything fails everywhere. Internal, external, public, private, everything is going to fail. We've been hearing this. This is a religion preached by cloud pundits. It's been reminded to us by Werner Vogel, CTO of Amazon, since the very early days. And so what you need to do is plan for it, right? So operational excellence of the cloud, of public clouds, is really, in our view, quite impressive. But failures happen everywhere, and sometimes when they happen in big public clouds, they can be big failures also. So it's really about designing with redundancy and failover in mind, and how much you want to spend on that. So you can have, failover scenarios that are cold, where you have to restart something. You can have them warm, perhaps with a small footprint in a different region or data center. Or you can have a hot alternative running. Depends on how much you're willing to spend, although those alternatives are now available at a low cost that's unprecedented. So from our laptop up here, we'll show you later, but you can launch resources in 5 different areas across the world, as well as private clouds, within 10 minutes that will cost you pennies. When else could you do that in the past? And at the end, it comes down, again, to how you design the systems, how you automate them, and how you manage that kind of resiliency. On the lock-in front, cloud locks you in. That's often a complaint, right? Well, it's really up to you. We do know that data has mass in the analogy that I've seen out there. Data has gravity. It's not easy to move huge amounts of data around. So you need to take that into consideration when you're designing for cloud. Also, vendors have contracts, including RightScale, and vendors have features and APIs. So it's up to you which of those you use, how you decide to select a vendor, how long you sign up for something, and then which features and API functionality you're using. So what you can do is preserve multiple choice for yourself depending on what you use, right? So you can obviously pay attention to the contract length, and you can avoid services that have unique APIs where if you find out that for whatever reason you want to move somewhere else, you can't, because you've now designed yourself into a box where the only service you can use comes from a single provider. So we recommend anticipate moving your service. Plan for it. Actually have a small footprint somewhere else so that you can actually test what it would mean to move the service somewhere else. Pilot a private cloud so that that becomes an option for you. And design for portability. Because at the end of the day, these architecture choices that you make matter a lot. There's a bear who didn't pay attention to design, and that's what happens. There was a survey just last month at the Interop conference in Las Vegas, done by Science Logic. They found out that 70% of the attendees planned to implement cloud, and also 70%, not necessarily the same 70%, didn't have confidence in being able to manage the performance of the cloud. So that kind of represents our situation today. Huge amount of interest, but people aren't quite sure how to architect, how to do things, right? And one of the major points I wanted to make today is that using the cloud is not the same thing as designing well for the cloud, right? And I think this caught a lot of people by surprise in recent outages who were, in my phrase, accidental tourists in the cloud. I signed up, I launched some servers, I got my service running, I sit back, I'm fine. Right? What they didn't plan for is the failures that everyone keeps saying you should plan for failure. So when the outage occurred, people who designed like that were down. And those who designed for resiliency and for redundancy weren't. So I think the point is, through good cloud design, you can avoid lock-in, you can achieve the kind of reliability, you can also achieve a very high level of security. In addition, you'll also become more efficient. And here's really the rub. This is a chart from IDC Survey. This chart is actually from 2006, so at the very birth of infrastructure as a service. And what you can see in a simple glance is the bottom layer of yellow is new server spending, so it's hardware. The top layer in green is power and cooling costs. This is IT infrastructure growth projected by IDC in 2006. You can see that the biggest part of that, way over half the cost, is around server management and administration. That's where a huge part of IT investment occurs. Here's another view on the same thing, again from 2006. This was quoted in a presentation by James Hamilton, comes from Deepak Patel, and it's a breakdown of what we spend in IT on operations. So you see all those different elements that go into operating IT, right? And the part in red, the point is that more than half of the cost goes into deployment and deployment-related incident management. That's what the projection was that we were spending money on. So really what can happen here is that through better management of the resources, using cloud infrastructures, using the predictability and reliability, and I hope you learn a lot about that today, you can increase the efficiency of the number of servers that are being managed by the same number of people. In a very inefficient scenario, you might have one sysadmin managing a couple dozen servers, small number of servers, depending on the situation. In the enterprise, high operational efficiency is maybe 140 servers per sysadmin on the average. Best practices, we have customers in the thousands of servers per sysadmin through automation, management, and design, right? So that's what's hanging out there as a cost reduction that doesn't apply directly to elements like hardware, et cetera. That's the cost element in the human factor that you need to operate your IT. So now we're going to switch to a live demo. I'd like to invite Daryl Eaton, our Director of Product Management, and I'm going to climb up on our squeaky stage here. And what we'd like to do is dive in and take a look at what some of this actually looks like in RightScale. So we're going to show you very, very briefly a couple of things. What cloud management offers right out of the box. A single user scenario for those of you who are new to cloud. Show me something where I can get some benefit immediately. What that might look like in a more complex scenario as you're moving to a larger company kind of situation. And then some examples of multi-cloud usage that really drive home the freedom of choice that you get in the cloud world today. So Daryl, take us through.
Michael. Is this on? Hello?
Yes,
all right,
you're
it's
on.
Okay. So let's get this up and running here. Okay, so one of the things that I constantly hear from our customers is they feel like RightScale provides them with a single pane of glass that they can use to manage all their cloud infrastructure. So here you see that we're logged in to the kind of the front dashboard for one of the accounts. And what you can see is kind of most of what you would expect from a management platform. So I can provision servers from here, I can monitor servers, I can assign users, give users roles, and one of the things that people really appreciate right out of the box is just the fact that they have a lot of usage reporting about how much are they spending in the cloud. If I expand this here, I can see by deployment what's my current run rate, month to date, how much am I going to spend this month. We have a variety of usage reports ranging from the high level like that all the way down to very detailed levels that you can even export to your data warehouse.
Right, and I'd like to emphasize these are at levels of granularity that you typically don't get from the underlying cloud.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that people enjoy right out of the box is a different report that I'd like to show called some of our infrastructure audits. So one thing people ask, or what generally happens, with people who are trying to figure out what's going on in their cloud, in their organizations, is a bunch of people are trying out the cloud, spinning up servers, and then all of a sudden they realize, wow, we have 50 servers running in the cloud, and I don't know what's going on there. So we started developing infrastructure audits. So for example, I can look very quickly and see all the security groups that are open across my entire cloud. And then if anything looks out of the ordinary, I can scroll down and say, who's got this random port open to some random IP, and I can drill it down and see that that's running on 8 servers. There's 18 servers that are about to launch with that port.
So this is for a scenario, for example, we interviewed one large company in San Diego, media company, that did an internal audit and found 60 different people had signed up for cloud accounts and were expensing them on their monthly credit card report. Independent accounts, no visibility into what they were doing from the IT department.
Mm-hmm. So this gives you a way to find out what's going on, how many servers do you have, what are the SSH keys out there, what are the security groups that are open. And then once you start using RightScale, we keep track of a lot of auditing information as well. So you can find out who launched what. In this case, I can find out who changed a specific security group and potentially open that port. So I can drill down on a lot of the items within the dashboard and say, who changed what, when, and what were the effects. So here I can see the current and previous permissions for that security group.
Great.
And then,
So you want to show us what it looks like to just launch a server, for example, and have a workload that's predefined?
absolutely. So this goes back to the, well, how do I get started in the cloud? What is one simple way that I can get going? I will bring up a bunch of servers here. One of the features that people appreciate most about RightScale is our configuration management, specifically our server templates. So server templates are a way that you can encapsulate a lot of your configuration for a server as well as the configuration for the cloud. So I'll bring up this one right here. This is a WordPress blog. You can see that it tells you what what image it's using, where it's launched, what's the platform, and we keep track of all of that. So whenever you launch it, we go and ask the cloud for the same thing over and over again. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you what it'll be like for you to launch a server like this for the first time. And the way I'm going to do that is, since this is just a blueprint essentially in the cloud, I can make a photocopy of it, I can clone it, and then I'll go ahead and launch this new server. And again, since we keep all the configuration information, all of the cloud information, essentially I'm just making a copy of this server right now and launching it. What you see in this view is a series of variables. So we don't like to bake things into the images. The cloud is very flexible, but it usually does stop at the image. We like to see that flexibility all the way inside and allow you to define the variables that'll even be done for the applications inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that WordPress application with the passwords that I need to use. Our customers use this to maintain templates of environments for their customers that they can spin up at a moment's notice and just change a few different variables to configure it for that customer.
So this is a very, very powerful concept for those of you who are new to RightScale in the cloud. Instead of having a fully frozen machine image with the OS, the application, and all the configurations built in and frozen into it, this is abstracting out those variables and even the individual scripts. They're in a shared environment. I spoke earlier this morning, kind of object-oriented programming for sysadmins, so you can pick and choose what goes in there and then apply different variables. So the idea is every time someone in your organization runs that particular server, in this case the WordPress blog, you get predictable performance with only a few variables that won't affect that performance changed.
So here I'm pointing out the script that configures this, so you can see the WordPress password environment variable right there. We extract that out and make that available to you as a variable in the dashboard. And you can write scripts in Bash, Python, PowerShell if you're on Windows. We have a variety of different ways that you can put your configuration into RightScale.
Okay, so you've launched that server. What does that look like when it's eventually running?
All right, so I'll go back to that first copy that I have, and you can see the new one is coming up here, pending at Amazon. But if I go back to that first copy, I can click on the public DNS name.
So we're showing you one that was launched earlier, so everybody doesn't have to wait around for the 5 minutes while it launches.
And I'm going to go ahead and log in with that same password. And then you'll be into your blog with that same password.
Right, very cool. So what do you got for us next as you grow beyond the single server kind of world?
Excellent. So obviously, that's just one server. We have a variety of tools that allow you to manage groups of servers, like the deployment concept, where you can spin up a whole bunch of servers at once that are related to each other. A lot of our customers use this for like scalable web, where the proxy will spin up a couple, web app servers will spin up in an array, as well as all the databases. And then we have ways for you to automate operations that might happen between servers as well. So what I'm going to demo now is I actually have a few different servers running. I have a MySQL manager over in Rackspace, and I have a MySQL manager using the same template in Amazon East. And what I'm going to demonstrate is we put that random word bump into the Rackspace database, and I clicked on a button which said backup to S3. So it took a snapshot of the underlying file system in Rackspace and uploaded it to Amazon S3. And what I'm about to show is restoring it to an EC2 instance and that the data is all there. So here we go.
So this is AWS and Rackspace. So it's an example around business continuity. Let's say you've grown, your business really depends on making sure that your service is up and running. And so what we're going to show you here is, assuming an outage occurred in one cloud or another, how quickly you could move having used a central backup system from one cloud to a second one.
So I'm going to go ahead and click on Do Restore. Well, first I want to show you, here's the Rackspace server. You can see up here Rackspace. And here's the word bump. And over here, there's no even conference database that we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Do Restore S3.
Those SSH sessions were to different servers?
Yep, so this one on the left side here is on Amazon, and this one on the right side here is on Rackspace. And this does not have the database on Amazon. So while this goes, in the background here, you can see the script is queued up, restoring from S3 to EC2. I want to go back to the high level here and point out that this is sort of the single pane of glass on one screen that I'm talking about. So here I have the deployment. If you notice, I'm managing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different clouds in this deployment. 2 different regions on Amazon, 2 private clouds, and one on Rackspace. I have monitoring at a very high level across all of them. I could easily get to any of the machines with the click of a button. And I can see what templates they are and get to any of those servers at any given point.
Scroll up for a second. I'd like to take this moment just to reiterate something we announced earlier this week that we're really excited about. It's the RightScale MyCloud program. And I spoke about it earlier this morning. Essentially, we discovered from customer feedback that some people were struggling with the complexity of setting up a private cloud that they could manage in a hybrid cloud situation alongside public cloud resources. So we partnered with both Cloud.com and Eucalyptus, who are sponsors here today. They have booths right next door, so please go talk with them if you're interested, to create very easy to set up install packages that would take bare metal. So if you get some servers in a rack, you can install a private cloud from either Eucalyptus or Cloud.com, register it with RightScale, register a public cloud alongside it like Amazon, and be up and running with a shared environment, a hybrid environment very quickly. These offerings come in both free and paid versions. So you can get up and actually run both the cloud infrastructure and RightScale free version, and then move over if you want high availability, more support, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what you're actually seeing there is the beginnings of RightScale MyCloud.
And I want to point out too that our partners, Cloud.com and Eucalyptus, do have breakout sessions this afternoon. So if you're interested in finding out more about the solutions and how it fits in with RightScale, please go visit their breakout sessions. Here you can see that the restore completed. You can also see that the WordPress blog that I spun up, the new one, is configuring itself right now, adding monitoring. So I'm going to go back to this, and now I do get to log in as my user. And there should be a conference database, which wasn't there before. And there's the words table. And there's bump at the very end. So what you just witnessed was I have a kind of like a machine running over an Amazon that's ready to take a database, and it's running the same template as the machine that was on Rackspace was running. And so it allows me to do some of these hybrid cloud management scenarios where I can take a backup to different clouds. And I could have done this vice versa, where I restored or backupped to cloud files and then restored to Rackspace. And you can also use this to move between east and west as well on Amazon.
Right. Audiences normally applaud at this juncture.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to emphasize it. It may look a little simple and boring in a text console, but if you think about the outage that occurred, 4 to 6 weeks ago, where companies were down for 3 days, if they had designed and used this kind of principle, imagine the continuity, the disaster recovery capabilities that you'd have, again, at very low cost. So we're super excited about this.
Definitely, and my hat's off to the engineering team, who obviously is working very hard on all these very cool solutions and coming up with very innovative solutions to meet those specific problems.
Yep, hats off, engineering team. So moving ahead, tell us a little bit about what's coming down the pike, what people can expect in the future.
Sure, so I put a lot of near-term items up here. So in the multi-cloud management arena, we are doing a lot of localization efforts. So you already see our Japanese translation. We do plan to open up that to the community in a way that we can get a lot of translation in a lot of different languages quickly, pretty soon. We've been working very hard in the multi-cloud API. We have a few customers who are using it in production workloads right now in a private beta. So that will be coming out publicly very soon. Security tools and certifications. As Michael mentioned, this is paramount at RightScale. So not only do we have a team, but we're working on additional tools for you, as well as certifications for any compliance needs that you might have. And we're always working on usability improvements, and would love your feedback on anything that we can make it even easier to operate your clouds in a push-button manner. I'm going to jump over to the configurations and operations side. So like our server templates, this would fall into this area. So we're also developing this full hybrid web stack for other clouds as well. So Rackspace, Cloud.com, Eucalyptus, and you'll be able to use those same templates on Amazon. So this is an evolution of the web stack that we have on Amazon. We have a high availability solution for Microsoft SQL Server that we're working on. Right now we have a single standalone that takes snapshots and backs it up, so people are already starting to use that, but we're evolving that. And then constantly working on additional Windows templates, like an Active Directory template with scripts to help your machines join that domain, as well as additional Windows templates and support. One further, farther reaching thing that's a little bit further out than the rest of the stuff is, which is in R&D phase right now, is advanced workflow. So now we're going to take the configuration above the machine and really put it into the deployment, where you can define exactly how we want your deployment to behave. Finally, on the cloud support side, some of the newer features on Amazon, we're currently working on incorporating VPC v2. This is a highly requested addition from Amazon. And you saw the announcement from Amazon about Red Hat pay-as-you-go AMIs, and those will be coming out soon, which we'll also support. We're working very hard on OpenStack support in the team right now, and we did announce a partnership with Tata, and we're working to stand up their India and Singapore clouds pretty soon as well. And
Great.
That is it.
Thank you, Daryl. So wrapping up thanks very much. So wrapping up the RightScale portion, just a reminder, key takeaways that we hope you get today around what's important in cloud design. Dynamic configuration, automation, designing for failure, resiliency. Choose something where you get an easy on-ramp, where you can get started quickly and easily, that's portable, and that ultimately gives you the visibility you need into what's operating on your cloud, who's doing it, who has access to what, and who's taken what action, right? So before I finish, I wanted to remind everyone that 2 weeks ago we announced our MultiCloud Marketplace. This is an enhancement of our server template library. It's something that is shared among RightScale contributions, partner contributions, and individual user contributions. And so as a reminder, there is a set of content up there. It was called the App Store for Infrastructure by Derek Harris at GigaOM. And you can see all these categories ranging from componentry like databases and caching layers, all the way up to business intelligent contents management and user applications in the library. You can see some examples here from IBM, Radiant, etc., DataPipe, Web Acceleration Stack, and our partner Zeus, Load Balancer and Traffic Manager. So a lot in the MultiCloud Marketplace, and we also announced a server template showdown a while ago, which we'd like to present right now, the winners. These winners are going to receive an iPad each and a trip to Santa Barbara, where our headquarters is, to the headquarters. So that's part of what's included. In the most innovative category, we have a Hadoop offering from SONET Entertainment. In the most popular practical, we have a Drupal all-in-one running on NGINX, and from Practical IT Consulting. And finally, the best in show, most useful is a Joomla solution. It's also an all-in-one LAMP solution from Integral R&D. So let's please hear it for those winners. Whoever's here today, I don't know if you're here, raise your hand if you happen to be here. You need not be present to win. So we're really pleased at the growth of the MultiCloud Marketplace and invite you to come have a look.